Hello and a very warm welcome to yet another fascinating edition of the program CAC Weekly, a weekly program that keeps you abreast on the activities and the achievements of the Corporate Affairs Commission. My name is Amina Jibril. Now, coming up on the program, CAC faces our 30-year-old staff appraisal system as it unveils a modern method of measuring staff performance. Also, more customers receive training and walk-ins of the CRP. Plus, we take a look at the CAC revised checklist as it unveils more reform initiatives. But we'll be right back after this break. Do stay with us.
The daily revenue being reported sometimes is not a true reflection of what we actually earn for the day. So what we have done is we've asked the vendors to change the reporting template so that they will report on every transaction. They will aggregate the transactions that are recorded on the portal and the assessment issue. So that because they don't post any transaction until they get confirmation from remitter that payment has been received for that transaction. So if we have record of that transaction from the portal, we'll be able to reconcile with the daily revenue being posted in CD and remitter. And this will give us a fair idea of whether we are being changed or otherwise.
Welcome back and thank you for staying tuned. We begin today with the efforts being made to enhance usability on the company's registration portal, the CRP. In its continued bid to keep customers abreast with developments around the Commission after the commencement of the implementation of the CAMA 2020 on 3rd of January 2020. The CAC is currently holding a series of trainings for the valued customers around the country. The CAC decided to embark on the trainings having realized that over 90% of its services have been made available online via the company's registration portal, the CRP, and access given to either accredited customers or any interested member of the public. Aware of the challenges the new registration module may pose to particularly not to tech-savvy customers, the Registrar General and CEO of the Corporate Affairs Commission, Alhaji Garba Abubakar, in collaboration with the CRP software developer, Oasis Management Company Limited, dispatched teams to all the 36 states of the Federation to further sensitize customers on the workability of the registration module. The technical teams currently traversing the length and breadth of the country to ensure that more users have better understanding of the workings of the CRP have just concluded visits to Kano, Jigawa, Bauchi and Gombe states, where they had successful interactions with the customers. Now, some participants at the CRP training who spoke to CAC Weekly applauded the Commission for organizing the event, which they said had greatly improved their understanding of the new system. Now, the trainees further commended the visionary leadership of the Registrar General, Alhaji Garba Abubakar, and urged him to sustain the tempo. In a goodwill message, the Registrar General, Alhaji Garba Abubakar, reiterated his commitment to ensuring full digitization of CAC operations in line with global best practices. He therefore charged the participants to embrace the technology which aims to simplify registration processes in line with the ease of doing business initiative of the present administration and also enhance the Commission's revenue, amongst others. From that now, we move on to another milestone achievement for the CAC. Now, since its establishment over 30 years ago, the Corporate Affairs Commission, CAC, had been using the Annual Performance Evaluation Report, APA, to measure staff performance, which today many experts describe as subjective and obsolete. In his continued bid to reposition the Commission, the Registrar General and CEO of the Corporate Affairs Commission, Alhaji Garba Abubakar, since assumption of office, embarked on a series of reform initiatives. The newest of the reforms was the comprehensive and modern appraisal system known as the KPI Performance Management System, unveiled at the management retreat held in April 2021. Now, CAC Weekly recalls that during the retreat's tagged review of CAC Annual Performance Evaluation Form, the Registrar General, Alhaji Garba Abubakar, amongst others, stressed that the retreat was part of the efforts being made to improve staff welfare and to reposition the Commission for optimal performance. He further expressed optimism that the KPI system would enhance productivity, reward hard work, and discourage laziness. Also, during the unveiling of the new appraisal system earlier in April 2021, the Director, Human Resource, Mrs. Olayemi Oyeniyi, said the KPI was in tune with best and adaptable global practices in performance management. She added that it was designed to assess staff performance on three bases and generally accepted performance determinants: knowledge, behavior, and tasks accomplished. Oyeniyi further stated that the new firm was structured into parts A, B, and C, which includes a KPI for the year under review and a KPI for the forthcoming year, amongst others. Now, during the event, Haruna Salihu, Assistant Director, Records and Promotion, via his paper titled Behavioral and Knowledge Performance Assessment, described the old method of appraisal as subjective and therefore inimical to growth and development in the system. 5 months after the Commission flagged off a sensitization training on the KPI-based appraisal system at the CAC Multipurpose Hall, Maitama, Abuja, declaring the training open, the Registrar General and CEO of the Corporate Affairs Commission, Alhaji Garba Abubakar, said the event was to acquaint supervisory staff on the rudiments and applications of the new appraisal form to ensure its effective takeoff. Represented by Haruna Salihu, the Assistant Director of Records and Promotion, the Registrar General said the training was to be conducted in streams to ensure effective understanding of rudiments of the new appraisal system.
This KPI, is a reference information. Because once the KPI is set, it must be a reference data in the sense that by the time you start working, you would like to know now whether you are on course or not. So for that reason, you have to look at it and say, okay, what KPI did I say to Abdul Razak? Is that he should be able to treat everything that comes to him within 12 hours. Because as a supervisor, when you are giving him that target, it's not just giving him target. You have to come with a more efficient way of doing it. Maybe the process have to be reviewed to show him how he will be able to do that within the time limit.
He therefore charged participants to make optimal use of the opportunity provided by the training and to remain committed to the effective discharge of their duties. And now we move on to our interview segment as the Commission continues to unveil a series of reform initiatives. Checklists for some services have also been revised in accordance with global best practices. Now, Mr. Tolulokpe Adeola Shonaike, the Assistant Director, Registry, helps us understand what the revised checklist is all about. Enjoy watching this.
Good to have you on the program again.
Thank you very much, Madina. Always a pleasure.
All right. Today we're going to be talking about something very interesting, operation checklist.
Yes.
I'm sure a lot of people have complaints. We do understand that the Commission for some time now is, revising its, operation checklist. Why the revision?
Okay. Now, this, what we're doing presently is a further revision. From the onset of the present management of the Commission, it was clear that effective and efficient service delivery will be defined by, will necessitate a collapse and shrinking of processes, for simplification. It will also require that we align practice with the law. There are a lot of things that we have been doing, that people have been doing out of tradition, we've been doing it conventionally. It was necessary, we knew that it would be necessary to align those practices with the law. And it was also clear that standardization, by which I mean service requirements, will be clear, and was key. And then electronic solutions was also key. So from the very beginning, as soon as the management came in, they realized that these things have to be done. And so the management came in, the present management, the RG was appointed in January last year. And then by March, barely 2 months after that time, the process leading to the first revised checklist began. Now, that checklist was released in July last year, July 2020. It involved an extensive and deliberate review of what existed, and we had to now articulate updates. and across departments and services. Now, the checklist as revised then was released in July. Incidentally, just a month after, August 7th precisely, Mr. President signed what then was the Companies and Allied Matters Bill into law. And so we had a new Companies and Allied Matters Act. Meanwhile, the revision was based on the 1990 law, because as at that time, we didn't know exactly when this new law was going to come into effect. So what that meant was that we had to go back again to the drawing board, and start another review to update that one to accommodate the new measures and the new things that the new law had introduced.
Okay. What I understand, or some people watching you will understand, is that this particular revision is supposed to, support the digitization of the present management. And people will wonder, so the 1999 checklist is an analog one all the way.
Well, that's not necessarily so. Don't forget that at the time we started that initial review, I mean, that was 2020. And at that time too, we were in some measure digitized. Maybe we had electronic solutions. The only challenge was that it was not end-to-end. At that time, you still needed to somehow interface with the commission to get the output, the end product. We have since moved from that position, right? So it wasn't supporting then, digitization. It's a process that was evolving. It was a process that was evolving. It was, but with the coming of the management just felt, look, we have to accelerate this process. We have to just remove what you don't need, strip it to the bare, so that people can simply, and with ease, do what they have to do and get service. So yes, maybe it couldn't deliver the vision of the management. And that was why the management had to start a process of review and update that will support its vision.
Okay. So what would be the expectations and the objectives of this particular revision?
Okay. Now, generally, the objective of any operations manual or checklist should be to introduce certainty and standardization into the process. And when you do that, of course, you simplify things for whoever sees and runs with it. It's like committing the vision on paper and how to achieve it. And then anybody, you don't even have to have been part of those who articulated it. Once you see it, you know what your expectations are, you know how to run with it. So what we hope to achieve, what the Commission hopes to achieve with this review and the updated one, first is simplicity. Processes should be simple. It shouldn't be cumbersome.
Not at all.
It shouldn't be,
in the 21st century.
Yes. So we expect that by shrinking processes, by aligning practice with law, and by standardizing, because standardization is also an objective, people should, common application. Don't forget that we have approving officers all over. Right. And yes, we may say our operations are now online. And so maybe it won't matter whether or not we have presence in states. But fact is that we have. And we have users from all over, global. Now, it's important that we have stated our services, that we clearly define what the requirements for those services are. So that you as a user, you see it. And when you approach and access the services of the Commission, you have certain expectations. You know that if I do this, which I've been told to do, this is what I get. So it's important for standardization. It's important for simplicity, for simplifying processes.
And so that is the word people are looking for.
Yes.
Simplification of the process.
And then it also fosters predictability, and there's something we talked about, that we describe as a structured dynamism, because the checklist will also contain a caveat that will state that from time to time, as the need arises, don't forget that these processes evolve.
Because I was coming to ask you, how often would this revision, take
yes,
place?
Yes. As often as would be necessary.
Okay.
Because I was sharing with some colleagues the other time, even what we call services today evolve. The services we provide today, there are quite a number of them, at least a dozen or more, that did not exist
Before now.
before 2020. In fact, as at 20, before the new law. So, of course, when things like this come up, and don't forget that determining these services are mainly predicated on demand. You know, the users want this, and then the economy desires this. And that is why I was talking about the structural dynamism. Now, there's a caveat that from time to time we will review and change. But we also put the caveat there, not just for the customer, but even for us as operators, that yes, there will be changes from time to time, but those changes must be structured.
Okay.
Not just one person will sit down in one place and decide that, well, I don't think this rule should apply and change it. No. So if rules are going to be changed, if requirements are going to change, it must follow a prescribed procedure,
Okay.
you know, to arrive at that change.
Okay. And so in terms of operations, what will be changed this time
Okay.
around?
Now there will be changes in the operations checklist. Will reflect. It's not introducing them,
Okay.
but will reflect such changes and scope that the new law, CAMA 2020, has introduced.
Okay.
So you'll find changes in services. You'll find new services, you know, additional services. You also find that there will be changes in requirements for some of the services that existed in any event. You know, you'll find that it would have affected service requirement for services, you know, that touch on companies, both registration and post-registration. And so also will it affect business names, incorporated trustees. These are entities that existed under 1990. And then it will also touch on what the law has introduced, the new registration arrangements, you know, the limited liability partnerships and the limited partnerships. But in terms of services, the law introduced some obligations, and those obligations necessitated the introduction of certain services, you know, the options that were introduced by the law. One of them, the service that you find as additional, you'll find registration and regulation of limited liability partnerships. You also find prescriptions in the operations checklist for registration and regulation of limited partnership. The first is limited liability partnership, and this will be limited partnerships. You also find prescriptions for registration of notice of company financial year end and changes therein. Yes, the law provides that the directors of a company should meet with the first meeting should hold within 6 months of its incorporation, that company's incorporation. And at that meeting, the directors must determine the financial year end for that company. That existed, but there was no obligation to notify the commission.
Okay. And
But
this
now
time
there is
around
an
there'll be
obligation.
yeah.
Yes, so
Okay.
that service has been introduced. Now you also find exemption. There were provisions for exemption of foreign companies. Ordinarily, no company should carry on business in Nigeria without registration. No foreign company should do that.
Okay.
But there was instances where the law recognized that they could come in and do business. Of course, all those instances fell under an arrangement where the government will have to give exemptions. Right. Now, under the 1990 Act, yes, Mr. President could exempt companies from being registered to carry on business, foreign companies, that they can come on and do business.
Okay.
You know,
So it is more about due diligence and transparency.
yes. You know, so it's to give the powers to properly ensure that the requirements of the law are respected by these foreign companies. So in 2020, the Act now imposes that obligation on exempted foreign companies to notify CAC within a certain period of any such exemptions, right? And the requirements, the particulars they must furnish are contained. There is a form for that.
Okay.
You know, so that way we are able to create records for them, just the same way we create for registered entities locally, and then we can follow up on post-registration obligations. You know, we can enforce. And the beautiful thing now is that the law has taken it out of it was originally managed by the Office of the Secretary Government of Federation, SGF, but now it is domiciled with the ministry, that is providing ministry. It is the Honorable Minister that now exercises that power to exempt. So it's something that is very easy for us to access.
Rather than doing merry-go-round.
And in fact, at the moment, we are working together, collaborating on a committee, to properly articulate the framework for that.
Okay.
So either way, any which way, we will always have that information.
Okay.
Right. Another thing that the new law introduced was the powers or the rights of directors, promoters, to restrict their residential address. Now, that is a fallout of security concerns, globally. So, of course, it became necessary that if I give you, because the law says I should, details of my residency, where I live, and some personal information, including my pictures, my signatures, and all that, there must be a mechanism to control unauthorized access or unauthorized use.
Okay.
So, records like that, residential addresses, personal information, will not be on the public record. Don't forget that the law designates all information that we have as public information. So it's anybody can pay and access it. They will see it. Right. Now, we need to also think about security and safety. The interest of those providing this information. They provided this information so that they can get a particular service. They have gotten that service. That information is with you. It's resident with you. It must be protected. It must be regulated. Fortunately, the law now provides for what you call service address. So if anybody is interested in that company, you can reach them through the service address. You don't need to know the residential address or addresses of their promoters. Of course, now we know that the law has introduced two insolvency resolution mechanisms, beyond and further, in addition to what existed. Mainly what existed was receivership, when companies are distressed and they have obligations to creditors, to lenders. What was available was receivership or compulsory winding up, by the court. Creditors winding up may start like that, or what you describe as arrangement and compromise. Now, what the law has done is to also introduce some other mechanisms, and in a way, this that's the company voluntary arrangements and the company administration, and in a way, superintending of them, so to say. I mean, the one that would necessarily take a first place is the company administration. So whether it's receivership or not, they are all treated in the same way. So these rules and regulations will apply to them. Now, why this is good is because company administration, right, sees beyond the money that is to be recovered, actually emphasizes continuity in business. And this is good for everybody because there is a socio-economic advantage, benefit to that.
And job creation.
Yes, job. It preserves job. It ensures that the business continues and is able to pay back this particular loan and still take some others and pay back. So, and then the companies exist to still pay taxes. So for everybody, it's a win-win. Right. So and that's why the law is emphasizing that above receivership, that is primarily give me my money back. And to do that, I'll take over your operations and undertakings. I'll run it until I get my money. However I run it, that's your problem. I get my money and hand over whatever it is to you. If it's carcass, fine. If it's still a prosperous business, fine. So before now, you find that most companies that went through receivership hardly got out of the woods. Mostly they will end
back
up
to square one.
In fact, worse, because
zero.
Usually they will end up being wound up. That does not help anybody. Right.
I do know that there are a number of changes in terms of operations, but we'll leave that for the following week. But will this structure also provide an opportunity for members of the public to take ownership?
Oh, yes. Because, we're going to share with them. Beyond sharing with identified institutions or firms, it's going to be on the website. And there will be a public notice that it is there, limiting a period for comments and inputs. So anybody.
So the average Nigerian doesn't need to get an expert to start explaining.
Even the regulations we published, the 2021 regulations to complement the Act, went through that same process. Individuals from the public, we have the files. sent in very, very valuable, cogent, and relevant comments, and inputs. We appreciated them, acknowledged them. And the ones that we found to be very, very solid, we actually introduced, we reflected it in the regulations.
Okay.
So it did not have to come from a firm or from a big...
Okay. And you gave them free registration, right?
Ah,
Not just take, not just a good commendation and say thank you for that.
No,
I'll get a free registration.
yes, but at the end of the day, what it also did for them was that it also simplified the system, the process for everybody, including them.
Oh, okay.
So
that's their take home.
There were some derivatives for them.
Okay. All right. I'm afraid we just have to leave it here, Mr.
I understand.
Thank you so much for your time, as always.
Always a pleasure.
All right.
Thank you.
And that does it for this week's edition of the program, CAC Weekly. We do hope you enjoyed watching. Remember, for comments and inquiries, you can please take advantage of our social media handles and our helplines. On Instagram and Facebook, it is Corporate Affairs Commission. Our email is csaffis@cac.gov.ng. You could visit our website via www.cac.gov.ng. And our helplines are on the numbers 081-822-99016 or 081-822-98971, 090-874-01598 or 090-874-01599 and 090-874-01600. Do join us next week for another interesting edition of the program. Same time and same station. From me, Amina Jibril, and the whole team here. It is bye for now.